A speaker of truth has no friends. What do you think my life is like? You have to understand that 98% of the world, or something around that, eats flesh. Vegans are in the minority, always. You go online, there are pages dedicated to ripping apart veganism and calling it an agenda and all the stuff that you're speaking about. Most vegan, this is not a cult. A cult is training people to normalize the consumption of dead body parts. That is a cult. To normalize murder, to normalize enslavement, to normalize exploitation, to normalize unhealthy food that leads to artery plaque, inflammation, and increased risk of heart disease and cancer and type 2 diabetes. And those are the cult. You can't watch a TV show these days without seeing pharma commercials and cheesy flesh foods that are made to look really delicious and appetizing. When you're watching TV or you're driving around and you see billboards and stuff, how often do those contain vegan options? And Big Pharma is heavily invested in animal agriculture. They are giving these animals up to 450 drugs. So even if you get grass-fed beef and it's labeled organic or antibiotic-free, they're still injecting those animals with drugs, period. I know you'd like to think that doesn't happen, but it's a fact. And not to mention hormones. They don't even need to be injected with hormones. You naturally get hormones stored in flesh, like cortisol, like TMAO, not TMAO, IGF-1 is insulin growth like factor 1. It creates growth. This is like a growth hormone. We already talked about that in the previous video. So the speaker of truth has no friends. That is true. And in every single post I make about promoting plant-based or talking about how unhealthy meat, flesh, or immoral or unethical or unneeded, every time I make those posts, I am a little nervous because you know why? I don't want to deal with trolls. I don't want to deal with the majority of the population, the majority of my followers. I don't want to deal with the comment sections. But you know what? I speak the truth anyways, because it is the truth. And the truth is, you don't need animal products to thrive and be healthy. And if you're going to sit there and just talk about how it makes you feel good and that's your justification for doing it, well, there's lots of things that you could do to make yourself feel good. It doesn't mean it's morally justified. A personal choice doesn't have a victim, okay? So I'm sure that pedophiles, raping kids or, any sort of injustice, I'm sure it makes the oppressor feel good. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. Doesn't mean you're morally justified to carry out that action. I'm sure that, you feeling good doesn't justify the action, okay? And again, your parasites are getting fed when you're eating flesh. Look this up. Don't take my word for it. Parasites absolutely love dead flesh. When it's in your gut and you have that unhealthy microbiome that's created by all the stuff that's in flesh, your parasites are having a feeding frenzy, so you get sensations of feeling good. You can equate this to when you have an alcoholic who feels good when they have their drink of alcohol. When they are coming down or they're detoxing from alcohol and they get shivers and they don't feel good. They go through all these. You can die from having withdrawals. If you're an alcoholic, you can die. You know, I know what happens in the jail system because my partner is a nurse at the jail, and there's people coming off heroin. There's people, they are just giving them drugs left and right because they want them to feel better. Well, you can die when you're withdrawing from alcoholism. Well, what would happen if the alcoholic who's withdrawing, what would happen to them if they are given alcohol? They will feel good. You're feeding what your body is craving, what in this case, parasites are craving. Okay, so if that's the best reason you got for justifying murdering sentient beings is that it makes you feel good, you're gonna have to do better. Because I could do lots of things that make me feel good, and it doesn't justify it. And it will catch up with you cumulatively. It will. Now, if you have, a little bit here and there, it's not gonna be something that really slows you down. The longest living folks on the planet in the blue zones, yeah, Okinawans are starting to eat more pork. I get it. Doesn't mean that's helping them. That's why their lifespan is decreasing. But the longest living humans in the blue zones, they eat 95% plants, mostly plants, okay? If they ate 100% plants, they would probably be even healthier. You don't need flesh to survive and thrive. You don't need it. It might make you feel good. Your parasites are getting fed, I don't understand. My car's having troubles right now. That's why I'm going to drop it off right now. But I need something science-based, not just subjective. I need something objective, some sort of fact. The speaker of truth has no friends, right? So you must be speaking truth rather than subjective reality, your subjective experience. Well, let's hear the science on what is in death flesh. What is in flesh that is not found in plants, in plant sources, in plant foods? What is in flesh that is healthier, that you need, that you can't survive off of? I would like to know that. That is a legitimate question, because if there's there's some magic ingredient found in flesh that's not found in plant foods, I would like to know what it is. Because it's been my experience through research, in my own personal experience, just subjectively, that anything found in a murdered, carcinogenic, decaying piece of death flesh is found in healthier and more abundant sources in plants, period. You have to look at what you're eating, first of all. You're eating an herbivorous animal that feeds on grass, right? Where do you think they're getting their nutrients and amino acids and phytonutrients? From the plants. Okay, anything that you're getting that's in that flesh that might be beneficial. Most of what's in the flesh is not beneficial, and we've covered that, but I'll keep repeating it. The science shows it's not beneficial, but anything that is beneficial can be found in healthier and more abundant quantities in plants. What do you think the herbivores are eating? They're eating plants. Some of the strongest land animals on the plane of the earth are herbivores. That is a fact. Okay? And who do we share the similar anatomy with? Bonobos. Okay, we share. Okay, and they eat 98% of their calories they get from plants. Okay, so if you look at our anatomy, look at our fingers. Look at our everything about us screams frugivorous herbivore. We don't like blood, we don't like guts, we don't like killing people. We like planting in the garden, we like picking fruit, and we like helping animals rather than murdering them. I have to run. We'll finish this again soon. Much love. All right, so as far as veganism being an agenda, I have no idea what people's agendas are, all right? My agenda is just simple and pure, all right? What's being done to the animals is not morally justified, okay? The Vedic texts say that plant-based protein is superior to flesh, and it is only justified to murder animals in times of war or famine. Now, there is a war being waged on us, but it's not so much chaos, war, Mad Max in the streets. No, you know, we have options, okay? Some of us choose to create demand for flesh, whether that's grass-fed beef, local, humane raised. Is there a humane knife to the throat? Some of us choose to do that. Some of us choose healthier options that doesn't create create demand for murdering sentient beings. You know, and you know, you can say there's an agenda for anything. There's obviously carnist agendas to keep the meat and dairy businesses going. Like I said, everywhere you look, there's indoctrination, there's programming, there's advertising for eating flesh and cheesy, gooey stuff. What do you think that is? You don't hear an agenda behind that, do you? Well, there's absolutely an agenda. There's an agenda to get you to eat that, which keeps their businesses running. Oh shit, we're going the wrong way. Oh shit, I shouldn't have gone on the freeway with the car being like this. Anyways, we don't hear that agenda, but suddenly people are wanting better health. They're creating, demand awareness for the vegan lifestyle, and then now all of a sudden there's an agenda behind it. Do you understand how ridiculous that sounds? The real agenda has been to turn frugivorous herbivores into carnivores or omnivores. That's the agenda. That is the real agenda, is turning human beings compassionate, fruit eating, vegetable eating, beans, nuts, grain, turning eating what's natural to us, turning us into flesh-eating zombies, necrovores, vultures. That is the real agenda. You can say there's an agenda behind veganism. There's an agenda behind anything. You can say that. Doesn't mean anything. Okay? Because some celebrities are promoting it who might have a side business that's selling pea protein or something, that makes it an agenda? Okay. Well, I've said this before when replying that there's a New World Order agenda, that the one agenda I could see is that they're conflating the word healthy with vegan, and so they're, if you smack vegan on a food, it says it's vegan, you can condition people to think that it's healthy. They'll eat the unhealthy food and they'll then succumb to the various illnesses. In comes pharma to the rescue. So I could see that being a legitimate agenda. Sure, absolutely. And on that same token, if you're going to say that that's an agenda, you'll also have to say there's an agenda behind getting everyone to eat flesh and dairy, which also produces disease and illness and reliance on pharma. So if you can't be disingenuous. You're going to talk about agendas behind veganism to produce a certain result, which would be dis-ease. Well, then you have to talk about how it's already done that for decades, for years, with the increased normalization of eating murdered beings and their secretions. It wasn't always this way. This is a modernization, post-war suburban thing where it's just it's after the war, and they have this excess of meat and dairy. So yeah, the vegan agenda. There, like I said, there might be agendas. You're not going to see me pushing any sort of agenda other than to point out the science, the immorality, and the unnecessary consumption of this normalized, indoctrinated culture that thinks they need to act like a necrovore or vulture to get their protein and their sustenance. Which, you know, I grew up in the thick of suburbia and this normalized process, and I was able to see through the conditioning that is everywhere and the normalization of this, and I was able to see through it. And so for anyone to say that veganism is a cult or an agenda, I would say you're being highly disingenuous, because the cult, the brainwashing, and the agenda has already been in place for years, and that is to normalize the consumption of carcasses and their secretions meant for their calves. So if you're going to mention a cult, you're going to mention an agenda, don't be disingenuous. Mention the other side of the coin. What's happening now is you're seeing more people waking up, more people watching slaughterhouse footage and seeing how disgusting and immoral and unneeded that is, and cruel and inhumane. And you're seeing that it does factually harm the environment. Okay, the number one polluter of waterways. Water is kind of important, right? Water, clean water is kind of important, you would say, to our survival. Yes, we do have primary water, but that's being suppressed. You know, Gaddafi in Libya was trying to normalize, was trying to make that more of a thing where they utilize primary water, and he was taken out. So we don't have the access to primary water now, okay? But the water we do have, is the number one polluter of it is from factory farming, okay? And even grass-fed beef uses exponentially more water in land than organic fruit and vegetable farming, okay? So the resources we have in place, we don't have access to primary water on a mass scale yet. We will in the future. But the resources we do have are better used on natural farming and permaculture, okay? Where we utilize the small acres of parcels of land on a more dense scale through planting a bunch of fruits and vegetables that have different impacts on the soil and the microbiology. And there's worms we can use. We can use the animals and their feces that are grazing. You could use their feces to enrich the soil. We don't need to murder the animals. We have better systems in place, healthier systems in place that utilize less land, less water, and are less cruel to these gentle giants, herbivores, by looking at natural farming and permaculture, okay? So the number one waterway polluter is from animal agriculture. So if we want to keep our water clean, we need to create less demand for that industry that is polluting the waters. So rivers, you know, all the feces runoff, it goes in the rivers, it gets dumped in the ocean. Okay, it's destroying our ocean. Ocean acidification, this creates ocean dead zones. You can talk about greenhouse gases not being impactful all you want. You can talk, even though it's more greenhouse gases through nitrous oxide and methane than all forms of transportation combined. We know our cars aren't making a huge impact, but nitrous oxide and methane are creating an impact. That's a fact, dude. And the biggest thing for me is the waterway pollution, besides the cruelty and the behavior, the demonic behavior of treating these gentle sentient beings, but is the pollution of the waterways. Water is life. Other animals, other species rely on clean water, and they rely on the habitats of where these animals are grazing, and they're going extinct. The number one cause of species extinction is due to animal agriculture, clearing land for these animals to graze and clearing monocropping soy, GMO soy, to feed to those farmed animals. So you're impacting ecosystems and numerous species of animals. You're polluting the waterways and you're destroying the rainforest. The number one cause of Amazon deforestation is animal agriculture. Now you're saying, oh, well, just go get grass-fed beef. Okay. What do you think that animal is eating? Where do you think that animal is getting their nutrients? From the grass. Maybe we can skip the middleman, skip the excess land usage, the excess water usage, skip all that stuff, and go directly to the plants that take up much less land, much less water, and is much less cruel.